And having had some really nasty crashes in my past, I have been very nervous out of the arena. And now I am out on rough terrain, slick terrain, ups and downs, hills, all sorts of fun stuff. And with this position, I am able to feel secure.
What a great horse. We just jumped the cross-country course at Buchanan with a helicopter going over us. Loose rein, came back to a halt. Really great ride.
This is Caroline Ash talking with Catherine Hunter of Sacred Connections Equestrian. Today we're going to talk to me about my experiences with the U.S. Cavalry forward riding system and how I've been able to incorporate it into my riding and how it's also changed the way I ride for the better.
Awesome. So when were you first introduced to this system?
Oh, I guess maybe about, 6 months ago or so. And I've been able to take in the words that you say, the words that you've written, and also watching you teach to start incorporating this. I've had a lot of experience with my dressage work as a younger person and learning through books and videos. So I've been able to take everything that I've learned from you and run with it.
Tell me more about what you mean by that.
Well, I used to read, I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Pajowski and Klimka, who were two of my favorites, and work to incorporate how they rode, how they talked about riding, what feel they talked about into my riding so that I could grow as a rider. And now what I'm doing and finding is that I'm taking this forward seat and it's helping me maintain my position better. I'm able to sit more on my tripod, so the front and seat bones of my pelvis, instead of rocked back onto my pockets, actually rocked back past my seat bones. This is making me a far more effective rider. I don't feel the need to choke up on the reins as much. It helps that I have a horse that's sane to ride right now instead of crazy warm bloods. But I feel that with this type of seat, the security that I have would put me into a situation where I wouldn't feel overhorsed by an exuberant young warm blood.
That's kind of exciting. Caroline is talking about, when she said the forward seat as opposed to the dressage seat is a more dynamic seat. The dressage seat is what we call a static seat, and it's designed to be ridden sitting down all the time, which means it's designed to be ridden in a flat, small, enclosed area, which is what dressage does. That's what dressage is. The forward seat is what we call a dynamic seat. And this seat is designed to allow the rider to stand up off the horse's back, free the horse's back and hindquarters to allow the hindquarters to push. It allows the rider to be forward with the horse's balance when the horse is going at speed and over uneven terrain. And it gives the rider a much more depth in their seat and a deeper seat because they have a long, deep leg and their weight is balanced down in their heels. So they're riding off their heels and their weight rather than only their balance and movement in the saddle. The forward riding and consequently the forward seat dates back 7,000 years to the first people who ever rode horses on the steppes of Eurasia, on Eurasian steppes. And these are the ancestors of the Mongols, the Cossacks, the Hussars, the greatest horsemen in history. And they rode little tiny horses, about 14, 15 hands, and they rode forward with loose reins, snaffle bits, and they used voice commands. And even though the stirrup was not invented until 400, 450 AD, the steppe horsemen used leather straps, and they would put their feet in leather straps so they could stand up because they were using a bow and arrow, and they had to you have to stand up to correctly and properly shoot a bow and arrow. And that's also why they rode with loose reins a lot, because they had their hands on the bow, and they found that their horses went really well on a loose or a long rein, and they used their voice to talk to their horses rather than depending entirely on their legs and hands. So in what way is this making you a more effective rider? Talk to me about your experience in that.
Well, the horse that I'm riding does mostly trails. And having had some really nasty crashes in my past, I have been very nervous out of the arena. And now I am out on rough terrain, slick terrain, ups and downs, hills, all sorts of fun stuff. And with this position, I am able to feel secure the entire time I'm out there. My horse, his owner, is constantly telling me how he doesn't like to move any faster than a walk down hills. Mingo, sorry, cat. And now that I'm using the forward seat and not rocking myself very far back when I go down a hill, he's actually picking up some speed, and we're going at a little bit faster clip, which has blown her away, and me too, because he feels so secure with me like that. And I'm talking, I gallop this horse now out on the trail. You know, it's a really well-traveled trail, so holes are marked. You don't have to worry about that. And just to cut loose and go. It's wonderful.
That sounds really fun. You know, my heart goes out to so many riders these days. If I had been taught to ride the way most people are taught to ride today, excuse me, I wouldn't have done half the things that I've done with horses. And you talk about feeling secure in the saddle. I've done, fox hunting. When I was 10 years old, I started fox hunting when I was 8. And when I was 10, they opened up some new country with some very, very steep hills. I don't know if you've ever been in southern Tennessee, southern kind of eastern Tennessee. They have very steep hills, lots of woods, rocky country. We would, for example, we would come flying down a hill that had, trees and rocks and vines and holes, and we'd go flying down this steep hill. We get to the bottom, and there'd be a 3-foot post and rail, or I'm sorry, a 3'9" post and rail in the middle of a creek.
Oh, wow.
And you jump the rail and you're right back up the next hill, which is very steep, and it's the same way. And at the top of the hill is a 3.5-foot coop. And you go. And I was 11 years old on an off-the-track thoroughbred. And it was fun. You know, it was so fun. And gosh, I've done so many exciting, fun things. I've been able to gallop racehorses. I turned my fox hunting horse, who was also my timber horse. I raced her over timber. I trained her to race over timber. I did point-to-points and some amateur steeplechasing. And I galloped racehorses. And then I went into historical cavalry reenacting. And I can remember one time, oh my gosh, it was near the end of a battle. And I was the last mounted Confederate that day. And the Yankees were winning, and the kid on foot carrying our colors was being chased by 4 Yankees. And I looked up and saw this, and I hollered at him. Now, think about this. Guns are going off, cannons are going off, there's smoke everywhere, there's people hollering, there's people playing wounded on the field, there's people marching in groups. And I hollered at this kid, I said, "Give me the colors." And he looked up, and he held the flagpole out, and I took off at a dead gallop on my thoroughbred and grabbed that flag at a dead run and took off up the hill. We saved the colors, but I never had a doubt that we could do that. And that's what this seat can do for you. You can finally let go, relax, and have fun with your horse. Well, I kind of went off on that, didn't I? I love this stuff.
It made me remember you were talking about shooting bow and arrow. I actually did some mounted archery with my Frisian mare, Janine. I didn't do a whole lot, but I guess that was really my first introduction to forward seat, because like you say, you do have to get up off the horse's back. You can't shoot a bow sitting down here. You have to be up and active. I know that, now that I'm recalling it, that I was definitely stiff and nervous doing such a seat because I didn't know what to expect. And this was 2010, 11, somewhere in there. So it's been a long time ago, but I really want to go back and try again, because I know that at this point, with my weight balanced in the ball of my foot down into my heels, as opposed to in my knees and my calves, I know that I could do a way better job and have so much more fun with it, because how cool is that? Gallop around and shoot things with bow and arrows.
It's fun. It's a blast. Yeah, you made an interesting point there about gripping in your knees. So many riders today are taught to grip in their knees. And we didn't do this 40, 50 years ago. This is a new thing that started with the development of hunt seat or hunter seat equitation. It is a result of a position breakdown that happened because they were pushing intermediate level riders into advanced level jumping in the show ring. They were pushing riders too quickly into the show ring, and the riders did not have a solid enough position, and their position started breaking down. And so what happened is people started gripping in their knees, and in order to do that, rotating their leg and their foot in toward the horse. And people started copying that. They started seeing that winning in the show ring because people were on expensive horses, well-trained horses. They thought, well, that must be the way to do it. And so this gripping in the knee has been trickling down a couple of generations now, and that's what people are taught. But if you grip in your knee, you're going to lock up your joints, and your leg stops right there. Yep. Your leg stops at wherever you're gripping. You do not have any more leg depth after that point. So if you're gripping in your knee, if you're gripping in your calves, you become top heavy. And you can't be forward correctly. And that's why we see so many riders today that are laying way up on the horses' necks in the jump rings. That's not stable. That's not secure. And it would scare me to ride that way. I wouldn't do it. So,
I know my hips and lower back would lock up. And I couldn't follow the horse appropriately. And especially after one of my really bad wrecks, that fear locked me down even harder. And I used to ride the canter so beautifully. I was so in sync with the horse. And after I locked up, I never could figure out why. I would bounce. I wouldn't find the rhythm. It's back now. I can sit that canter and flow with it, and it's just like riding a stream.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, when you grip in the knee, it turns your leg in toward the horse, and it locks up your joints, including the joints in your hip and your spine. And it pulls the rider into like a fetal position. And it sucks in your abdomen, and you lose all the movement, the shock absorbing movement in the hips and the abdomen area for when you're sitting down. That same shock absorbing movement happens in what we call the forward balance position. It's a galloping jumping position. And if you're doing it correctly, you have movement from your ankles all the way up through your back. And you're just floating with the horse, and it feels like you're floating with the horse, and the tension is gone, and you're not perched way forward on his shoulders. You have a long, deep leg. Funny story about that. Years ago, I was teaching at a barn that had a dressage instructor, and she was mostly German school. And we would hang out and watch each other's lessons and learn from each other because we spoke the same language. She had really good training, so we spoke the same language. And she came in and watched me working very early in a rider's lessons. The rider was still doing position work, and I had her in the forward balance position. And this other instructor looked at me and she said, "That's the same leg position we use in dressage, only the stirrup is shorter." She says she's really deep down in her tack, down in your tack. And I'm like, yes. So that's what I love about forward riding, is it gives people this functional dynamic seat that not only can they stand up over uneven ground and at speed and over jumps, but they can also sit back down and do the dressage maneuvers, because forward riding, the U.S. Cavalry system, is a blend of forward riding and French classical dressage. So we teach both the dynamic seat and the static seat, and the rider learns how to blend them. And for example, when I'm doing reenacting, and we're in the middle of a battle and we're doing some really tight maneuvers, I can sit down, use my legs and my seat to get my horse in file, move, wheel to the left, wheel to the right, whichever thing we need to do, and then take off at a dead run in an instant, because I can switch from the static seat to the dynamic seat as my horse switches his balance. And that's what a lot of people forget about when they're teaching position. They're teaching form rather than fluidity and movement and balance with the horse.
Well, it's like we say in the dog world, you want function over form.
Thank you. Thank you. And what rider wouldn't take function over form? And yet we've been doing form over function for decades now. And that's why we have a lot of messed up horses and messed up riders, and riders that are scared to ride outside the ring, and riders that are scared to jump more than 2 feet. It's sad. It breaks my heart. So, was there something else that you picked up from the U.S. Cavalry system that you've tried that you really like?
Yes, talking about dressage, since that's my background, the horse I'm riding right now is actually a Tennessee Walker. So we're exploring the world of Western dressage now, which is so different, yet so much the same.
I love it.
And I've found that with the forward seat and that stability that I've got, I now have my horse between my thighs. And I can communicate so much more effectively and influence his movement so that we just, like you said, we're fluid. We're fluid together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny when people use the term Western dressage. I'm such a nerd, and I'm such a history nerd in a lot of ways. Western came from dressage. And of course, when I say something like that, the Western people get all up in arms. We're not sissies, and the dressage queens, they get up all upset because, oh no, we're not Western riders. But truly, if you look back, if you study your history, Western riding came from the Spanish vaqueros, who were the knights, and the knights they rode dressage basically. That was what was being taught in Europe from the time of Xenophon forward. And so the knights rode dressage, the vaqueros came from the knights, and it's just a different saddle, just a different saddle. So have you experimented any with loose reins with this little horse you're riding?
Yes. Yes, he does not like a lot of contact. When I ask him to bring himself together, it's strictly from my seat. And I mean, I'm out there on the trails with my reins just swinging, just a swinging.
Mm-hmm.
And no thought in my head about it. He's comfortable, I'm comfortable, everybody is doing great with it. So I can't say anything more succinctly other than that it's connection in its purest and most unadulterated form.
Oh, wow, I love that. That's beautiful.
And it's a connection without grabbing. It's a connection without withholding. It's freedom.
Wow, that's beautiful. There's so much talk these days in the horse world about connection and bonding and all that kind of stuff. And I see what you're saying, because I feel very connected with my horse when I'm walking, trotting, cantering along with a loose rein, and all I have to do is say a word and my horse responds beautifully. I say slow and he goes from a medium trot to a slow trot. I don't have to pick up the reins and grab his face. And I think loose reins is so important because the horses need time to relax on a loose rein. They can't hear you if we're in their face constantly, all the time when we're riding. There's no space for the whisper to come through. And yes, good dressage is not good, correct dressage is a wonderful training tool. It's not abusive when it's done correctly, but the horse needs a rest from it. They need to be able to relax and stretch their head out and just kind of zone out a little bit and just go along and just look at the trees and the birds like we do. And that, if you think about it, I think dressage rides still do this, but even the highest level dressage rides, they are supposed to leave the ring on a long rein, allowing that horse to stretch and relax. And this is a test. If that horse puts its head down a ways, and stretches, it can show that the horse was correctly flexed at the pole, correctly on the bit, correctly collected, and he's just stretching and relaxing. And Captain Vladimir Litar of the 1st Hussar Russian Cavalry, if you watched our videos, you've heard us talk about Litar. Litar wrote a book called Common Sense Horsemanship, which is a phenomenal work of genius. Litar took the U.S. cavalry system, and this book is that system designed for civilians, and it works beautifully. But in that book, he talks about the fact that horses need time on loose reins. He says a horse should be ridden at least 1/3 of the time on loose reins, and of the remaining 2/3, the horse should 1/3 of that should be on a long contact, allowing the horse to extend its head and neck. Doing this, allowing your horse time on loose reins, allowing your horse time to extend its head and neck, lets your horse mentally, physically, and emotionally relax. Because when a horse shifts its weight to the hindquarters, that fills our system in with adrenaline. And we don't need to be going down the trail with our horses full of adrenaline, you know?
No. Well, I appreciate you talking to me about this today. It's been so much fun to, again, hear your wonderful words and recount in detail what this type of riding has done for me. And I've barely even scratched the surface.
Well, that's beautiful. I'm so glad it's helping you. I'm so glad it's helping that little horse. That's amazing.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, because I couldn't have done it without meeting you.
No. Well, I'm grateful to the U.S. Cavalry forward riding system that we use with Sacred Connections Equestrian.
As am I. And that's Caroline and Catherine signing off.